Hello, everyone. I am here on the Southern California Kriegsspiel Society's Gettysburg map, and I'm here to talk to you about some Kriegsspiel problems. Now, we have a scenario that's going to be run tomorrow with a whole bunch of players, and in this scenario, I have baked in a series of problems that the players will have to sort of figure out for themselves. They won't know what the problems are either. They won't be told. But I think for the most part, it will be obvious what the problems are. And the solutions should come to them naturally, like any student who's studied for an exam. They should be A-OK with the problems and manage to solve them. But I'm going to talk to you about what these problems are that we've baked into this scenario, because that's kind of interesting to see what challenges we're throwing at the players. All right, this is the town of Gettysburg, and it was the site of a decisive Civil War battle in the year 1863. It is the turning point of the American Civil War. Prior to the Battle of Gettysburg, the South, the Confederate forces, tended to do very, very well, and they traditionally, or I should say routinely, defeated the Union in a series of very large battles throughout the preceding few years. But after this battle, which was a Union victory, the Union tended to win all the battles going forward. Not all of them, but most of them going forward. And it was sort of the turning point of the war. So Gettysburg is a remarkable location. You can see right away you have the town here, and then you have all these roads coming in from various directions. And that's because Gettysburg is sort of a hub. And as a hub, it's really important because whoever controls this town controls all of the traffic moving through it. And it was in a strategic location. You could go around it, but going around it would take another day or two's march to do so. So you really wanted to control this town if you could. So the first problem that both armies have is that they have to capture the town of Gettysburg. That's baked into the scenario. They have to capture it, so they're both going to fight over exactly the same space. The second problem that they have, which they don't know, they know that they're going to be told to exit the map at some point in the scenario. What they don't know is they all have to take the same route. So they're all going to be fighting over the same road to leave Gettysburg and meet up with their main force, which is off the map. That's one of their objectives. That's how they end the battle. But chances are neither army is going to have an easy time doing that. There are other problems. The Confederate Army has what's called two corps coming up on one road. Now, their whole force is two corps. There is the rest of the army, and the rest of the army is off map for the duration of the scenario and will not have an impact on the battle. But the two commanders commanding their two corps and all of their subordinate generals, the guys under their command, they have to contend with everything on this map. And one of the first problems they have to contend with is, what do we do when we're all stacked up along this road? It's like one big line waiting to get into a popular venue like a concert or something. It's going to be a mess. Now, the solution to this problem, of course, is they're going to have to move to other roads and move parallel, right? They can do this. They can do other things. And what they want to do then is move on Gettysburg from multiple directions. Okay, so they'll want to branch off and do this, rather than stack up right here and pile up, which is what's going to happen. So the solution to the problem for the Confederates is, again, move in by multiple avenues. But will they do this? It remains to be seen. It's up to the commanders to order this, and they might not choose to do this. They might just say, we'll just stack up here, or we'll go off this way across country or something, which will be very slow and very inefficient. And I don't know how that will help them capture the town itself, which is their main objective. The Union has a similar problem. They're going to be coming up the Emmitsburg Road, which is, again, quite similar. Two corps on the Emmitsburg Road, and these lines are very wonky. I apologize. Let's see if I can. There we go. We can at least make that a little smaller. And here you go. So they have to come up this way to the town of Gettysburg. Okay, so what's their solution? Well, just like the Union guys, their solution is to break off and come in along multiple routes. But we'll see if they do that. They might not do that, right? They might choose to take all one route and again stack up here, which would not be a passing grade. All right, let's talk about some other things. The next problem is the Confederates have one division forward deployed. Now, that's a small portion of their overall force, but it's a significant portion, and it's one that can help them to achieve this objective of taking the town, because they know the Union is coming from this direction, this direction, this direction, or this direction. They don't know which, but they know the Union troops are coming from one of these directions. To counteract that, what they can do is they can put their troops out and block these advances. For example, if I were to block the attack here, look, all the lines are written up in space. What do you know about that? That's silly. But here, they can block here. Right? They could put a force there and make it hard for the Union to get across there. They could put another force, here is a little orchard. They could anchor a force there. Or they might choose to come all the way here where the terrain is. They could put artillery up here, and they could fire at troops as they come along this way and inflict casualties on them. They could put troops here, to use this high elevation here to prevent the Union from passing through this way. They could put troops out here and so on. So there's all these things they can do to slow down the Union advance. And that's vital because as the Union advance is slowed down, the Confederate advance then has time to come in and secure the town. But we'll see how they resolve this. Likewise, the Union then has to decide, how are we going to solve this problem? What are we going to do when we encounter a force that's blocking us? Let's say there's a force here and it's blocking us. What do we do? Do we plow straight through it? Or do we go around it? Do we do both? Do we send some troops around and some to attack? What do we do? How do we handle this problem? And again, that will be one of the things we'll be looking at to sort of grade or score the players. All right. Along with all of the players, there's going to be a bunch of these blocks here called supply blocks. And you can see how I just cleared everything off the table so that I could illustrate stuff on the map for you. Okay, but supply blocks represent supplies, the things that the troops need in order to sustain themselves on the march. That includes ammunition, it includes food and other supplies, right? Everything. So here we have a supply train, as it would appear, moving up the road. One of the problems, though, is that the players have to contend with supply. As their troops move around the map and fight, they will consume their supplies. If they have a supply wagon near the troops will be able to replenish ammunition and continue fighting. But if the troops are too far away from their supply train, well, then in that case, the troops are going to have to retreat because they won't have the means to stay in the fight. So the generals have to contend with supply. But not only do they have to keep supply units near the troops that are in combat, but these supply trains will move very slow. So it will be very tempting for a commander to move their troops out of range of their supply units. So here we have some cavalry units. Cavalry units actually move pretty fast. They're the fastest moving units, actually. But they also need supplies, right? So if I have a cavalry unit and I move it way up here, well, I'm not in easy range to replenish my supplies. It's going to be very hard for me to replenish supplies from clear back here. I'm going to have to bring a wagon up, or I'm going to have to retreat the unit and cycle it out with another one so that we can get the supplies in there. That's actually an artillery unit. It's horse artillery. That circle means horse artillery. Here's another cavalry unit. Okay, so they're going to have to figure out, how do we keep these units on the front line sustained while protecting our supplies? and the supplies are going to move slow. So the supplies are going to slow them down as they advance across the map to fight one another, and they're going to be a liability in the rear, because if the enemy should get units around, let's say I get an intrepid cavalry unit around this way, well, my cavalry could come through and attack and destroy these supplies, which would then leave even less for these guys to have to fight with. So that's a problem that both sides will have to contend with. All right. The weather will be hot. This is one of the things that I haven't told the men yet. They will know that the weather is hot, but what that means is they have to water their troops. And, well, how do you water your troops? Well, it's very simple. You pass near the water. As the men pass near water, they will, on their own accord, go out and send runners with canteens to fill the canteens, and they will replenish the water supplies on their own. But what happens if you have a unit out here, let's say, and the unit is, let's say it's over here, and it's fighting, and they're out here, and they're all day, and there's no water nearby. There's kind of water here, but let's say there's enemy units here, and they can't get to that water. Or let's say they're back here somewhere, right? And again, they're far away from water supplies. What's going to happen? Well, the answer is they're going to kind of get tired very easily. They're going to lose combat effectiveness because they don't have water. If they're near the town, they'll be able to get water from local wells here in the town. But that's one of the problems that they have to solve. Other problems that they have to solve is the fact that neither unit has a unified command structure on the field. In other words, you have two corps entering the map from two different directions for two different armies, but they don't have a commander-in-chief. Their commander-in-chief is actually off the map. So both of the corps commanders on both sides have to decide if one of them or neither of them is going to be senior and how closely they want to work together. Naturally, teamwork will make them more effective, but who's going to be the leader? Who's going to be the subordinate when they both hold the same rank? So that's something they have to work out as they approach. The last problem they have to solve is the fact that neither side has cavalry units right at the start. Cavalry units, that's these guys, are very important because they are the eyes and ears of the army. They're sort of like feelers that go out ahead of the army and can spot things in the distance and say, hey, here's the enemy, here's what he's doing. They can do that because they're on horses. They can move very quickly. They can ride away from the enemy if the enemy should try to attack. So they're very well suited as a scouting force, but without a scouting force, well, you're just as likely to blunder directly into the enemy and get into a pitched battle in ground that you don't want to be fighting on unless you have these cavalry scouts. Well, guess what? Neither army is going to have cavalry scouts right at the start. They're going to arrive late, which is highly unusual, but it is a problem. It's a problem that both sides could encounter and one that they'll both have to solve. So these are the problems that we're looking to see the players solve in tomorrow's big battle. We'll see how they do it, and we'll talk more about how they solve these problems or not in a later video. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.